CNN is getting a front row seat to the Ultimate Fighting Championship arena set up on the White House grounds. The haymakers and chokeholds are coming to the South Lawn on Sunday night as part of America's 250th birthday, notably on the same day that President Trump turns 80. CNN's Betsy Klein has the first close-up look at the Octagon.
You've got about stadium seating for about 4,000 people in here. This is that storied Octagon, that structure where the fight will take place. It's not entirely clear where President Trump is going to be seated. But, right now we are seeing lots of chairs set up. This tables right at the base of this Octagon. There is also set up for staging for a band. We are expecting performances from military bands, as well as Zac Brown Band having a concert here.
Let's talk about the big event with a member of the UFC Hall of Fame, a former welterweight and middleweight champion, arguably the greatest MMA fighter of all time. Georges St-Pierre is with us. GSP, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you.
Thank you for the intro.
Of course. So you're going to be coaching.
It's a hell of a compliment.
It's the truth. You're going to be coaching your teammate and fellow Canadian Ayman Zahabi on Sunday for the biggest fight of his career so far against Sean O'Malley. What advice are you giving him?
Well, he's not the favorite, but I told him to focus on what is important, focus on the things that he only have control on, and not focus on things that could be a distraction, because it's a waste of energy.
Well, there are going to be a lot of distractions. I saw an interview that he did talking about adjusting to what conditions are going to be like Sunday, fighting not only outdoors, but in the humidity of DC, where your breathing is different. The mat, the canvas is probably going to be more slippery. And on top of that, there's never been a UFC event like this. It's at the White House, and it's probably going to be the biggest audience that UFC has ever had. So how do you eliminate those distractions and focus on your opponent?
Well, you have to think about the fact that it's the same octagon, the same rule set. However, the fact that it's outside, of course, it brings a different element. The ability to adapt will be very important. Ayman is very good and is very adaptable, and I think it's going to turn out to his advantage.
I wonder what you think having this huge event means not only for UFC, but more broadly for MMA and combat sports.
Well, I can speak for myself. I remember in 2008, I fought in Montreal. UFC came in Montreal for the first time. I headlined the card. The next day, I saw in the newspaper that were saying, it was a barbaric event and everything. And now, 20 years later, almost, less than 20 years, but almost 20 years, we're fighting at the White House. So it's just unbelievable how much it has evolved in a little bit, in 2 decades,
Yeah, and I wonder, I'm sure you've heard the critics about this event. There are people who think that having a fight like this outside the White House diminishes its prestige. What do you say to those critics?
I'm just an athlete. I leave American politics to the American. I'm Canadian, and I'm thrilled and very excited to be part of this. It's an historical event. I don't think we ever going to see that in our lifetime ever again, probably not. So for an athlete like us, it's better to take opportunity and advantage of it while it's there.
No doubt. Today, Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Dana White are going to sign a partnership to promote sports diplomacy to grow MMA worldwide. I wonder how you think MMA can help bridge gaps in diplomacy.
Well, I can say martial art saved my life. I started first because I was bullied at school. Then it turned, from a self-defense perspective, it turned into a passion, and then it turned how I earn a living. So it helps me. And I think the values in mixed martial art, like respect, discipline, is something that our society can take advantage of and learn from.
GSP, before we go, I know you said you're Canadian. You may not be as familiar with the history of U.S. presidents, but I wonder if you had to pick one president in U.S. history to coach in the octagon, who do you think would have the most success?
Oof. Hey, that's a hell of a question. I would need to. I would need maybe a young, hungry man, very athletic. I think it would be the best candidate.
Legend has it that Abraham Lincoln fought in 300 wrestling matches and only lost once, so you may want to go with Honest Abe.
Oh, that's right. Lincoln would be the man. That's right. That's right.
GSP.
I didn't want to offend anyone, but I think it would be the perfect candidate. Yeah.
Tall and lanky, he could probably beat somebody up. GSP, Georges St. Pierre, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you.
Dana White, the UFC's president and longtime friend of President Trump, is setting very high expectations.
This is a very unique experience for everybody, and we're expecting Super Bowl type numbers for this fight.
My panel is here. I mean, those are pretty high expectations for people and what they're going to watch. I mean, could be.
Sure. I mean,
it's a spectacle.
And look, I mean, the president made a point of sort of tapping into this, sort of the manosphere, right? Going on the podcast. He's used sports as a backdrop for his presidency on multiple occasions. He was at the Knicks game earlier this week. So you can imagine that there are many supporters that could be excited about this. I do think it's interesting that it does come at a time where we have seen a certain shift in sort of the cultural influence that the president has been commanding, right? I mean, if you go back to early last year, you had business leaders flocking to Mar-a-Lago, podcasters eager to have the president on, NFL players doing the Trump dance after touchdowns, right? And we've seen a bit of a shift here with some of the musicians dropping out for some of the America 250 things. Some of those podcast hosts criticizing the administration as well. It does seem like we've seen a shift, that this event comes at a bit of a shift for the sort of cultural grip that the president had.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. But if you talk about President Trump, Trumpism currently, and culture, there's nothing that says that more than the UFC. I don't know what this means, but my son says that there's a good card. I'm going to look over here.
What is the card? I just want to say, there is a court fight going on about this. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. But we've never seen anything like this at the White House. And as part of the court arguments, I believe the Trump White House was saying, well, former President George W. Bush, 43, had T-ball at the White House. I don't think we have those pictures, but I would suggest Google those pictures of T-ball. Very different.
Slightly different and not quite as much enrichment going on, the T-ball thing. I mean, this is just scratching the surface here. I mean, this is the beginning, kind of the kickoff of the America 250 thing. And just driving around it and walking around to the mall. I mean, it's extraordinary what's happening. And this is all by design. But I think the bigger question is, it's become more than a celebration of a patriotism, but it's coming as the inflation conversation we talked about earlier. It's impossible to decouple these. And is it going to make the president look even more out of touch? We'll see. Not among his true supporters, but I was with him in Wisconsin last Friday, and he was talking about the beautiful fountains and all these things. There was dead silence from a room of Trump supporters. And I was struck by just how disinterested this room of supporters was. And they don't place a priority on all this beautification like he does.
Right. Well, especially when you're in Wisconsin, and he was speaking to farmers, and they're more worried about the cost of everything to do their jobs. This afternoon, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, will sign a memorandum of understanding with Dana White of the UFC in order to foster bridge building initiatives and diplomacy through the sport. And then the FBI posted this on its rapid response account yesterday.
It's a great partnership with the UFC. You're seeing about 300 agents come through here and learn these amazing tactics so they can safeguard American lives.
1, 2, 3.
If you didn't catch that, UFC fighters are working with FBI agents to help train them.
Yeah, I mean, if there is a Trump interest, you do see it kind of, spread beyond other areas throughout his administration and promoting it, whether it's at the State Department or, or at the FBI. My colleagues in Congress spotted Dana White hanging out there this morning on Capitol Hill. But, this really does kick off this kind of summer of hosting for Donald Trump, who obviously loves being at the center of attention. He had talked, back, when he had lost the 2020 election, he has said, and his allies have also told me, that he was kind of, sad about not being the president, when America turns 250 years old, when America hosts the World Cup. So he sees it as kind of a poetic, ending, that he is the president when all of this is happening. And obviously, as Donald Trump does, there is a certain amount of Donald Trump in all of these celebrations.
I mean, absolutely. And I think you're right. This is going to be the first of events. There's also, I think, going to be a NASCAR element this summer,
August, I believe,
too.
yeah.
You're likely going to see him continue to use the White House as a backdrop for these kind of events. You did mention that lawsuit, though, and I am interested to see where that goes. I don't think it'll block this event, but there have been questions of, just how much money is being made off of this event, and also the ethics of using the White House as a setting for a business operation, right? That's what the UFC is.